The rain hammered against the windows of the small coastal clinic as Julian Mitchell finished cleaning his medical equipment. At 29, he'd chosen this quiet fishing village precisely because nothing ever happened here, a deliberate escape from the chaos of emergency medicine in the city. The door burst open. A woman stumbled inside, soaked to the bone, carrying a limp child wrapped in blankets. Her dark hair clung to her face, green eyes wild with terror. "Please," she gasped. "My daughter, she's dying." Julian's training kicked in immediately. He cleared the examination table with one sweep of his arm. "Put her down here." The girl couldn't have been more than 7, her lips tinged blue, skin pale as moonlight. Julian checked her pulse, thready and weak. Her breathing came in shallow gasps. "How long has she been like this?" he demanded, pulling out his stethoscope. "Since yesterday morning. The fever started suddenly." "I tried everything," the woman's voice cracked. "The mainland hospital is 4 hours away. She won't last that long." Julian examined the child rapidly, his mind racing through diagnoses. The symptoms were unusual. High fever, rapid deterioration, strange markings spreading across her skin like dark veins. Nothing in his medical experience matched this pattern. "What's your name?" he asked the mother while starting in 4-line. "Vivian Blackwood. This is Elena." Her hands trembled as she stroked her daughter's forehead. "We're new to the island. Just moved here 3 weeks ago." Something in her tone suggested there was more to that story, but Julian focused on the immediate crisis. He drew blood samples, ran every test the small clinic could manage. The results made no sense. Elena's blood showed an anomaly he'd never encountered, as if something was actively consuming her from within. "I need to be honest with you," Julian said, meeting Vivian's desperate gaze. "I don't know what this is. Without proper treatment." "There is a treatment," Vivian interrupted, her voice suddenly steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "But it requires something very specific, something rare." She reached into her bag and pulled out an ancient-looking leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. "My family has dealt with this condition before. It's genetic, passed down through generations. The cure requires blood from someone with a particular marker, type AB negative with a specific protein sequence." Julian's breath caught. "That's incredibly rare. Less than 1% of the population." "I know." Vivian's eyes locked onto his with unsettling intensity. "I tested everyone on this island before we arrived. There's only one person here who has it." The weight of her stare made Julian's pulse quicken. "Who?" "You, Julian Mitchell. I came here because of you." Julian's mind reeled. "You came here for me? How did you even know?" Vivian's expression remained fierce, desperate. "I have my ways. Blood donor registries, medical databases. When your child is dying, you learn to access information others can't." She grabbed his arm, her fingers surprisingly strong. "Please, 1 drop of your blood mixed with a specific herb extract. That's all she needs." Every rational part of Julian's medical training screamed warnings. Unverified treatment, mysterious conditions, a stranger who'd apparently stalked his medical records. Yet the child on his table was undeniably dying, her breathing growing more labored with each passing moment. "Show me the procedure," he said finally. Vivian's relief was palpable. She opened the journal to a marked page, revealing intricate diagrams and text in what looked like Latin mixed with another language he couldn't identify. The instructions were surprisingly precise, almost scientific despite their archaic presentation. "It's not magic," Vivian explained, reading his skeptical expression. "It's genetics my ancestors didn't understand well enough to explain properly. Your blood contains something that counteracts the enzyme deficiency in hers." Julian sterilized a needle, then drew a small vial of his own blood. Vivian produced a small bottle of dark green liquid from her bag, the herb extract, apparently. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she mixed the components in exact proportions. "This has to be administered directly," she said softly. "A transfusion won't work. It must touch her lips first." She tilted Elena's head back gently, parting the child's pale lips. The mixture touched her tongue, and for a moment nothing happened. Then Elena's entire body convulsed. Julian moved instinctively to stabilize her, but Vivian held him back. Wait, this is normal. The dark veins across Elena's skin began to recede, pulling back like shadows fleeing from light. Color returned to her cheeks. Her breathing deepened, steadied. Within minutes, the transformation was complete. The child's eyes fluttered open, confused but alive. Mama? Elena's weak voice was the most beautiful sound in the room. Vivian collapsed against the examination table, sobbing with relief. Julian stood frozen, his scientific understanding of medicine thoroughly shaken. What he'd just witnessed shouldn't have been possible, yet the evidence lay breathing normally before him. Elena fell into a peaceful sleep, true sleep, not the dangerous unconsciousness from before. Julian checked her vitals repeatedly, unable to believe the readings. Complete recovery. Impossible yet real. Thank you, Vivian whispered, looking up at him with those intense green eyes. You saved her life. I should run more tests, keep her for observation. No. Vivian's voice carried unexpected authority. No hospitals. No records. This condition, if certain people knew about her, we'd never be safe. Julian's instincts prickled. What exactly are you running from? Vivian stood, moving closer to him. In the dim clinic lights, he noticed details he'd missed before, the elegant bone structure of her face, the determined set of her jaw, the way she moved with unconscious grace despite her exhaustion. Her father, Vivian said quietly, he doesn't know about her special nature. He can never know. When I discovered I was pregnant, I realized what she might inherit. I left before he could find out. And now, Vivian's hand reached out, touching his chest directly over his heart. Now you're connected to us. Your blood runs in her veins. In my family's tradition, that creates a bond that can't be broken. 3 days passed. Julian tried to return to his normal routine, but normal had become impossible. Vivian appeared at the clinic each morning with Elena, ostensibly for follow-up examinations. The girl had recovered completely, her energy and laughter filling the small space. But it was Vivian who occupied Julian's thoughts. She'd rented a cottage near the cliffs, and somehow Julian found himself invited for dinner on the third evening. The storm had cleared, leaving the sky bruised with purple and gold. Inside, Vivian had transformed the sparse rental into something that felt like home. Candles, fresh flowers, the scent of something delicious cooking. Elena hugged Julian's legs the moment he arrived. You made me better. Mama says you're special. Your mama did the real work, Julian said, but his eyes found Vivian's across the room. She wore a simple dress that highlighted her figure, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. I thought we should have a proper thank you. Elena, can you set the table? As the girl busied herself with silverware, Vivian approached Julian with 2 glasses of wine. You've been avoiding my calls. I've been thinking, he admitted, about what you said, about bonds and traditions. Vivian, I barely know you. Yet you didn't hesitate to save my daughter. She handed him a glass, her fingers brushing his. Actions reveal character better than words ever could. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Elena chattered about everything. The beach, the seashells she'd collected, the books Julian had lent her. Vivian watched them both with an expression Julian couldn't quite read, something between contentment and fierce protectiveness. After Elena went to bed, the atmosphere shifted. Vivian refilled their wine glasses, then led Julian to the small balcony overlooking the ocean. The moon painted a silver path across the dark water. They stood close, not quite touching. My family has always been different, Vivian said quietly. The condition Elena has, it's not a disease. It's part of our lineage, something ancient and complicated. Most of the time, we're perfectly normal. But during certain phases, we need stabilization. From someone like me. From you specifically now. The bond formed through that first exchange, it's permanent. Her body recognizes your blood as compatible in a way that goes beyond normal medicine. Julian turned to face her. You're saying I'm obligated to stay? To keep providing treatment? No. Vivian met his gaze steadily. I'm saying I won't let you leave. There's a difference. The statement should have angered him. Instead, heat flared through his body. You can't just claim someone, Vivian. She stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. Can't I? You saved the most precious thing in my world. That creates a debt, Julian. And I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Aren't you? Her hand rose to his chest again, feeling his heartbeat accelerate. Your pulse says otherwise. Julian caught her wrist, intending to push her away. Instead, he found himself pulling her closer. This is insane. Perhaps. Vivian's lips were inches from his. But you're still here. You came to dinner. You've been thinking about me as much as I've been thinking about you. She was right, damn her. From the moment she'd burst into his clinic drenched and desperate, something had shifted in Julian's carefully controlled world. He'd spent 3 days trying to convince himself it was just the intensity of the situation, the drama of saving a child's life. But standing here with moonlight in her dark hair and desire evident in her eyes, he couldn't lie to himself anymore. Julian closed the remaining distance, capturing her mouth with his. Vivian responded immediately, her arms wrapping around his neck as she pressed against him. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and consuming. She tasted like wine and secrets, and Julian wanted to drown in both. They stumbled back inside, barely breaking apart. Julian's hands found the zipper of her dress, while Vivian worked at the buttons of his shirt. Clothing fell away between heated kisses, creating a trail toward the bedroom. Vivian's bedroom was bathed in moonlight filtering through gauzy curtains. Julian lowered her onto the bed, taking a moment to simply look at her, skin like ivory, curves that made his hands ache to touch, eyes that held both vulnerability and fierce determination. "You're staring," she whispered. "You're beautiful." Julian settled beside her, running his hand along her side. "And you're also completely insane for thinking you can just keep me here." Vivian smiled, a predatory expression that sent electricity down his spine. "I told you, I protect what's mine. And you, Julian Mitchell, are definitely mine now." She rolled them over smoothly, straddling his hips. Her hair fell around them like a dark curtain as she leaned down to kiss him again. This time, she took control, her mouth exploring his jaw, his throat, the sensitive spot behind his ear that made him gasp. "Vivian." "Shoo." Her lips traced lower, across his chest. "I've been thinking about this since the moment I saw you. Do you know how long I searched for you? How many databases I hacked? How many records I sorted through?" Julian's breath hitched as her kisses moved lower still. That's actually kind of terrifying." She looked up at him, eyes gleaming with humor and heat. "You should be terrified. I don't give up things I want. And I want you." Her mouth returned to its exploration, and rational thought became increasingly difficult. Julian's hands tangled in her hair, torn between pulling her closer and maintaining some semblance of control. When she took him in her mouth, control became impossible. He groaned, hips arching involuntarily. Vivian's hands pressed him back down, holding him in place as she worked him with devastating skill. The sensation built, pleasure coiling tighter and tighter until Julian had to pull her away or embarrass himself entirely. "Come here," he growled, dragging her back up for a rough kiss. They rolled again, Julian pinning her beneath him. He kissed down her body, determined to return the favor. Vivian's skin tasted like salt and something sweeter, intoxicating. When he settled between her thighs, her fingers gripped his hair, almost painfully. Julian took his time, learning what made her gasp, what made her moan, what made her hips buck against his mouth. Vivian was beautifully responsive, unashamed in her pleasure. When she came apart, she cried out his name loud enough that he worried briefly about waking Elena. "Now," Vivian demanded breathlessly, pulling him up. "I need you now." Julian reached for his discarded pants, searching for his wallet. "I don't suppose you." "I'm protected," Vivian interrupted. "And we're already blood bonded, remember? I think we're past normal precautions." The reminder of their unusual connection sent a thrill through him. Julian positioned himself at her entrance, then paused, searching her face. "Are you sure about this?" Vivian wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him in. I've never been more sure of anything. Julian pushed inside her slowly, savoring every inch. Vivian's back arched, her nails digging into his shoulders. She felt perfect, like her body had been designed specifically for his. They moved together, finding a rhythm that built steadily towards something explosive. Julian, Vivian breathed against his ear. You feel so good, so perfect. He increased his pace, driving deeper. Vivian met him thrust for thrust, their bodies moving in synchrony. The bed creaked rhythmically beneath them, but neither cared. All that mattered was this, the slide of skin on skin, the building pressure, the way Vivian's body clenched around him. I'm close, she gasped. Don't stop. Please don't stop. Julian had no intention of stopping. He shifted angles slightly, and Vivian cried out sharply, her entire body going rigid as her orgasm crashed through her. The sensation of her pulsing around him triggered his own release. He buried himself deep, spilling inside her with a groan that seemed torn from his soul. They collapsed together, breathing hard. Julian started to withdraw, but Vivian's legs tightened around him. Stay, she whispered. Just like this. Just for a moment. Julian relaxed against her, their hearts racing in tandem. Through the open window, the sound of waves against rocks provided a rhythmic backdrop. Reality would return eventually, questions, complications, the sheer insanity of what had just happened. But for now, wrapped in moonlight and Vivian's embrace, Julian couldn't bring himself to care. Morning arrived with golden light and the smell of coffee. Julian woke to find Vivian's side of the bed empty, the sheets still warm from her body. He pulled on his pants and followed the sounds of movement to the kitchen. Vivian stood at the stove, wearing only his shirt from the night before. The sight made something possessive stir in Julian's chest. She looked perfect in his clothing, like she belonged there. Morning, she said without turning around. I made breakfast. Figured you'd need your strength. Julian moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and kissing her shoulder. For what exactly? For the conversation we're about to have. Vivian turned in his arms, her expression serious despite her state of undress. Last night was amazing, but we need to talk about what happens next. They settled at the small table with coffee and eggs. Elena was still sleeping. Vivian had checked on her twice already. I meant what I said, Vivian began. About not letting you leave. But I realize how that sounds. Controlling, possessive, maybe a little crazy. A little. Julian raised an eyebrow. She smiled faintly. Okay, a lot crazy. But Julian, you need to understand what Elena's condition really means. She'll need treatment every few months, possibly more often as she grows older. Your blood is the only thing that stabilizes her. Without it, she'll deteriorate like before, Julian finished. I understand the medical necessity, Vivian. What I don't understand is why you're framing this as possession rather than asking me to help. Vivian's fingers traced patterns on her coffee cup. Because asking implies you have a choice to say no. And I won't accept that answer. My daughter's life depends on you. So, you're willing to keep me here by force? If necessary. Her eyes met his, unflinching. But I'd much rather you stay willingly. Last night, that wasn't just about obligation, was it? Julian reached across the table, taking her hand. No, last night was about you. About how I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you walked into my clinic. About how you make me feel things I wasn't sure I could feel anymore. Relief flickered across Vivian's face. Then stay. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Stay with us. Build something here. You're asking me to give up my whole life. What life? Vivian challenged gently. You came to this island to hide Julian. I researched you, remember? Brilliant emergency physician who burned out after losing a patient. You chose isolation over facing your pain. Is that really living? The words hit harder because they were true. Julian had been running for 2 years, hiding in this quiet village, convincing himself he was healing when he was really just avoiding. What if her father finds you? He asked. Vivian's expression hardened. That's why I need you close. Not just as Elena's doctor, but as protection, insurance. If Nathaniel discovers where we are, having someone with your skills nearby could mean the difference between escape and capture. You're using me. Yes, she admitted without shame, but I'm also falling for you. Those things aren't mutually exclusive, Julian. I need you, but I also want you. Can't it be both? Before Julian could answer, small footsteps pattered down the hallway. Elena appeared in her pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Julian, you stayed over. She climbed into his lap naturally, as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. Does this mean you're staying forever? Mama said you might. Julian looked at Vivian over Elena's head. The mother's expression held hope, fear, and unwavering determination. In that moment, Julian realized the truth. He'd already made his decision. Maybe he'd made it when he first drew his blood to save a dying child. Maybe when he'd kissed Vivian under the moonlight. Or maybe right now, with Elena's small weight in his arms and the woman who'd claimed him watching with those fierce green eyes. Yeah, kiddo, Julian said softly. I'm staying. Vivian's smile was radiant, transforming her entire face. She reached across the table, her hand covering his. You won't regret this. I might, Julian said, honestly, but I'm choosing it anyway. Later, after Elena had been fed and sent to play on the beach under watchful supervision, Vivian pulled Julian back to the bedroom. This time, their lovemaking was slower, deeper, a sealing of the bond they'd both acknowledged. Afterward, tangled in the sheets, Vivian traced the vein in Julian's wrist. This blood, she murmured, it saved my daughter. It binds us together. In my family's tradition, that makes you part of us now. Part of our lineage. What does that mean exactly? It means, Vivian said, pressing a kiss to his pulse point, that you're mine and I'm yours and nothing will separate us. Not distance, not time, not even that Father Elena doesn't remember. Julian pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair. You're absolutely terrifying, you know that? I know. Vivian's laugh was soft against his chest. But you're staying anyway. I'm staying anyway, Julian agreed. Through the window, the ocean stretched endlessly, carrying away his old life and all the safety of isolation. In its place, a mysterious woman, a miraculous child, and a future he couldn't predict. Dangerous, complicated, possibly insane. But as Vivian's lips found his again and Elena's laughter drifted in from the beach, Julian discovered he didn't want safety anymore. He wanted this. Wanted them. One drop of blood had saved Elena's life. But perhaps, in some strange way, mother and daughter had saved his too. And Vivian was right, he wasn't leaving. Not now, not ever.